Kia ora, e te whānau. Hayden here with you today. Now that we've moved into level 2 and our bubbles can extend a little bit more, I'm sure many of you will have taken the opportunity to catch up with some of your family and your closest friends. Today, as we continue to meet as a church together apart during this time, maybe some of you have joined with another person or a couple, or maybe with another family to hang out and share together as you watch this. Throughout this time of lockdown, one thing that I've been very aware of is just how different this time has been for different people. Some have been on their own, or maybe with just their partner, and may have struggled with feelings of loneliness and isolation from others. Some have been in large family groups. Maybe they'd love a bit more isolation from others at times. For some, it's felt like an extended holiday, carefree and relaxing, whereas for others, it's been a time of intense stress and filled with anxiety. Some have had the joy of teaching their own kids from home. Some have lost their jobs and income throughout this time. In our household, we've had 2 adults trying to juggle working from home with the insatiable demand for attention of a 4-year-old. Thank goodness we could rely on 2 wonderful teenage girls to just get on with their schoolwork by themselves. So, in our house, there's been lots of eating, family games, cooking and eating the cooking, walks or bike rides, eating, lots of screen time, baking and eating the baking, and in desperation, we even bought a trampoline to entertain the youngest. That really was a great idea. So in many ways, it's quite hard to come today with a message that will be meaningful for everybody. I hope that something in what I share today is encouraging or speaks to you wherever you're at. One thing I want to show you today is my new tattoo. I did that one myself. Hopefully its meaning will become clear as we carry on. Recently, while trolling through Facebook yet again, I saw something that made me stop, and it kept rolling around in my headspace for some time. It was a quote from Richard Black, who's a well-known New Zealand Christian counsellor and the founder of the organisation Strength to Strength. The quote simply said, "And then I realised, this isn't an interruption to my life, this is my life." Maybe, like me, you've just been waiting for all of this COVID stuff to be over so that we can get back to normal, whatever that may look like. Maybe you've been doing what you need to do to get through this weird and uncomfortable time. If I'm honest, I got quite frustrated early on when I read or heard some people saying how much they were loving all the extra time and space just to be still and to listen to God. Well, I guess some households have been relaxed and peaceful, whereas others have been full of noise and activity, maybe even quite chaotic at times. Actually, most of my thinking around what I'm sharing today started to come together while I was out doing some work in the backyard. I had to rush inside and scribble down some notes before I lost my thoughts again. Many will have felt like their whole lives have been put on hold and have been waiting for the signal that they can get back to it. I became aware that, at times, I was living out of a survival mentality. I've just got to get through the next days and then we'll be back to normal again, back to my proper life. The sad thing about this way of thinking is that we can easily miss some beautiful moments and opportunities, what people often refer to as the now. It's so easy to get preoccupied with all the extra tidying up, the cooking, the cleaning, the washing, stopping the kids from squabbling, and looking forward to the end of bubble life. Maybe we just escaped our current situation by endlessly watching Netflix or burying ourselves in social media. In our bubble, during this time of lockdown, we've had a bit of all sorts, but we have had some wonderful family times. With no sports practices or games and no dance lessons, we've actually all been together at the dinner table, which was a rarity before lockdown. We haven't had to rush out after dinner for evening meetings. We've been going for walks or scooter rides around the block with Toby, playing board games as a family, watching movies, having family disco dance parties with DJ Poppy. We've had so many opportunities to spend precious time together in our bubble, which perhaps aren't always so easy to do during normal life. I was reminded about the story of Mary and Martha. I'll read it to you. This comes from Luke 10, verses 38 to 42. As Jesus and his disciples were on their way, he came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. She had a sister called Mary, who sat at the Lord's feet, listening to what he said. But Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. She came to him and asked, "Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do the work by myself? Tell her to help me." "Martha, Martha," the Lord answered, "you are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed, or indeed only one. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her." Mary is sitting at Jesus' feet, hanging out with him and listening to everything he's got to say, enjoying the moment. Meanwhile, Martha is busy doing what she thinks is important, what she thinks needs to be done. How often do I get caught up in the stuff that's less important and miss the moments that are actually meaningful? Do we embrace the moment, or do we get distracted? Do we take the time to see God in the small things, in the life around us? Or are we too preoccupied with the business of life and just getting stuff done? So here's a question for you. What are some of the things that have been opportunities or special moments that you've had because of lockdown? You may like to pause now and chat about this, or you can talk about it at the end of the video. It might be a good question to ask someone if you join in with our CCC Zoom Cuppa and Catch Up at 10:30. See the CCC notices if you need info on how to connect with that. And then I started to wonder, what is God doing in all of this? If this is not just an interruption to my life, then how should I live? What should I be doing? I wonder if God would say to us, what's in your hands? Use what's in your hands. This question first pops up in Exodus 4, verse 2, where God called Moses and told him to go and lead the children of Israel out of Egypt and into the promised land. Moses, however, was afraid that they wouldn't believe him or listen to him. So God says to Moses, "What's in your hand?" Moses looks at his hand. "A staff," he says to God, as if God didn't know. It was just his ordinary, mundane stick that he probably used for walking and to guide his sheep. The Lord says, "Throw it on the ground." And when Moses did, it became a snake. God tells him to pick it up by the tail, and it turned back into a staff. Over the next 40 years of Moses' life, God used that simple wooden stick to deliver the Israelites from Pharaoh, to open the Red Sea, to win a battle with the Amalekites, and to bring water from a rock. God used the everyday, ordinary thing in Moses' hand to bring about the miraculous. When Jesus sees a hungry crowd, he says to his disciples, "You feed them." They were stunned by the idea. It would be a mammoth task. So Jesus brings it down to their level. "Okay, guys, do a little inventory. Find out how much food we've got." The disciples checked around. Well, there's a boy here. He's got 5 small loaves and 2 small fish. That won't do much. Jesus ignores their unbelief. He took the bread and the fish, gave thanks for them, and then he shared the food out to the people until all of the 5,000 men, plus all the women and the children, had been fed. There's another great story in 2 Kings 4, verses 1 to 7, of a widow who was in debt and couldn't pay. In fact, they were about to take her 2 sons as slaves. She calls out to Elisha, and he says, "What do you have in your house?" In other words, what's in your hands? "Nothing," she says, "except a little oil." To her, the oil was nothing, but God could use it. Elisha told her to collect lots and lots of jars and to pour the oil into each one until they were filled up. They filled all the jars, sold the oil, paid off their debt, and even had enough left over to live on. God's work was done by people doing an inventory and then offering to God what they could find. What's in your hand? What is the stick or the loaves and fish or the oil in your life that God could use? It may not seem like much to us, but God can do amazing things with what seems small or fairly ordinary. And then I realized this isn't an interruption to my life, this is my life. I don't want to look back on this time with regrets and wish I'd taken the opportunity to do things differently. I don't want to look back and regret not making the most of the situation and taking hold of the moments that present themselves. No regrets. So my second question for you to think of and talk about is this. What's in your hands? What can you do this week? In what way can you allow God to use what you have to be a blessing to others? Ian has been doing a fantastic little mini-series during the week on the priesthood. You can find that on our CCC YouTube channel. And I was reminded about a picture or a vision that Fraser Hardy shared a few weeks ago. In fact, just this week, Ian shared the outline of this in the latest CCC newsletter. This is what Ian said about it. Fraser had a very clear vision before lockdown of priests leaping out of their beds, already dressed and full of excited energy as they went into their communities with arms full of things to bless with. Fraser said, "When I saw this, I felt it was a call to us again as priestly communities, a royal priesthood, God's people, to be awake and ready to re-engage in what we have always been, a key part of our calling as a priestly people. A call to move out of our certain and well-known places and routines and be ready to serve our communities as the priestly people we've been called to be. Let's not miss out on what God is wanting to do in us and through us because we're waiting for life to return to normal. As we start to interact with others more in these next days, let's be looking for what's in our hands. What have we to offer God to use for His purposes? I wonder what that might look like. A phone call, taking someone out for coffee and a chat, a message of encouragement, dropping off some food, babysitting so someone can go out of the house without kids. As we now start to move into the business and the demands of level 2, I don't want to look back on this time and feel like I missed a moment. Remember to be like Mary. I don't want to look at what is going on now as an interruption to my life. This is my life. I'm going to leave you with these questions and encourage you to talk about them with some others. If you're able, it would be great for you to connect with the rest of the CCC whānau on our Zoom, cuppa and chat today at 10:30. But otherwise, bless you and keep taking the opportunities to allow God to use what's in your hands. Bless you.